It's such a tough topic. I think everybody
Yeah.
always wants to know what their property's worth. They look at Zillow. So let's talk
Oh,
about
oh,
Zillow a little
jeez.
bit.
Oh, don't bring up the Z word,
The Z
please.
word, right? Yeah. Welcome to the Opposites Unite podcast.
Where we discuss real estate and lifestyle topics,
Break barriers
build connections,
and find common ground.
let's unite.
So, common problems that we see is that when agents list property either too high or too low. So let's talk about why we don't want to do that. So why would you? What would happen is if you price something too high?
Well, if you price it too high, more than likely nobody's going to come see it. You're not going to get any offers, and you're going to end up having a price reduction in 2 or 3 weeks.
And then on top of that, now you've got days on market,
Yes.
which I find to be the second thing that people ask me for whenever they see a property that's been sitting for a while. They immediately want to lowball that offer.
Well, yeah,
or that
they
listing.
see it as an opportunity for
Right.
a price reduction on the offer end.
And they not only want to do a smaller price reduction, they want to completely just whack them at the knees with what that property, what they can get it for, right? They
Yeah,
want
absolutely.
immediately want to just
It is.
super lowball
It's
it.
the first thing a buyer's looking for is days on market. They're looking for that opportunity always.
So, okay, so that's a low, if you price it too high.
Mm-hmm.
You basically underexpose the property because people think it's too expensive, it's overpriced. They're never even going to look at it again. And then the other thing is, so then the days on market climb. Now we want to talk about what if you price the property too low, which, right? What if you basically are looking like you're giving away the property. So what does that look like? Because that's what we're talking about right now. About we just had a
Right.
property where we made an offer.
Yeah, so I can tell you about a story that happened this week. Unfortunately, our client wrote an offer on a property that was a smoking deal, or appeared to be anyway. In reality, they priced the property way under market value, which my client thinks was on purpose, and I don't disagree. In order to get multiple offers, I think they had 20 plus offers on this property, and it ended up going, well, into escrow, supposedly 300,000 over the asking price. So quite a bit. However, I just got a phone call from the listing agent today telling me that the buyer never brought the deposit in, and do we want to up our offer to match that? And my client was like, no way.
Well,
They feel duped at
Yeah.
the end of the day.
So having been in situations where the property was very competitively priced and maybe we missed a little bit on the mark and it just happened to be under what the market was. One specifically that I can recall was that we made huge improvements to the property from the point when we listed it. We paused it, or we had a contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we paused it and then we did some improvements to it. And then the property with those improvements was so much more appealing than when we first saw it and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
priced it, right? So that's a situation where we did it, but not really,
Not intentionally.
not intentionally, right?
Right.
Um,
I mean, we would never do it intentionally. If, nobody's perfect, and if an agent misses the mark on the price, I'm more than likely it's not
But
going
it's
to
a-
be that off.
it's a situation where you're getting blown up with people.
Mm-hmm.
People are trying to get in like crazy. So the property gets a ton of exposure,
Yeah.
but it's going to get exposure from the wrong element. Although in those situations, generally the price gets driven up, right? Because people compete.
Absolutely.
But the instance you're describing, it didn't get driven. It got driven up so high that the person that they accepted clearly was just wasting their time. Because never
Completely.
showed up to do the deposit. They signed the paperwork, sent it in, but what are you going to do? You don't have a deposit. You can't take anything from them. They essentially have no skin in the game.
Yeah.
Now they wasted your time, and all those other people that you just told,
Yeah.
we no longer want, we
Well,
have
they
another
wasted
offer.
everyone's time,
Right.
essentially, right? Because all the people that wrote offers who were legitimately trying to buy this property, now they've maybe either moved on to other things, lost hope, been discouraged, or feel slighted.
Yeah, and now you got to go back, hat in hand, as an
Yeah.
agent, right? And be like, hey, are you willing to come back and buy this property that you paid more than asking, right? You agreed to pay 150 over asking.
Our clients offered 150,000 over
Right.
asking. The listing agent came back to me today and said, "Well, we signed the one we signed off on. It was 300,000 over asking. Are you willing to match it at this point?"
And your client said no.
Pound sand. They
Well,
completely
that's
said
completely
pound sand.
right.
And
Yeah.
understandably, they really did put their best foot forward offering on this property. And it was honestly such BS that this agent
But this
did
is,
this.
and
It
this is
was
going to
so-
leave
it makes
such
me
a,
so mad.
it's going to leave such a bad taste in the buyer's mouth, even if they do get their 150 over asking offer accepted. What do you think they're going to think like all the way through?
Well, they already feel like this agent was being shady,
Right.
right? So
Now they're gonna question
that's
everything.
that was established like pretty early on.
That's going to be a tough thing. So pricing is important. These
Extremely
are all like
important.
very sensitive things. If you can
Right.
price a property appropriately, you get an offer at asking. You don't have to deal with appraisal issues, right?
Right,
Because even
right.
if you overpay, now do you have a buyer that has the cash difference if it doesn't appraise? Because you just drilled people, you ran a bunch of people through there. They emotionally got involved, they got connected.
Yeah.
But people get rational with time, and they start looking at their bank account. They start going, is this property really worth what I'm willing to pay for it right now, or
Yeah.
did I just get caught up
Yep.
in the gotta have it kind of situation, right? Where you get the FOMO and that whole going on. But like, do you now need time to, now that you get the time to think it through, do you back out like what that person did?
Yeah, probably.
And you drop that seller on their head essentially, right? Because like I said, we have to go back hat in hand, try to pull those people back in, try to get them to have that same amount of enthusiasm. Or could we have just accepted an offer that was where the comparables would bring it in, and more than likely where the comparables would bring it in, which wouldn't make an appraisal issue, right? And if there is an appraisal, do they have the cash difference to make it up and agree to pay the difference?
Well,
Up
yeah,
front?
that's one of the most important things as a listing agent. When you're vetting all the buyers, you've got to make sure they've got the cash to bring in the difference. If there is an appraisal issue, or if you even suspect there's going to be an appraisal issue. I mean, as you know, sometimes when, you do have a hot property and there's a lot of offers and it does go for over asking, you've got to make sure they have the cash to cover the difference. And ideally that they're waiving the appraisal contingency.
Right? Yeah, and that makes a difference. Or just take the best offer you have that's going to close, because that's the biggest thing, especially when you're relocating people and they have to move to another state. They can't get stuck without the cash because they're buying something else. So they go through the process of trying to find something to move into. We
Yeah.
negotiate that deal, which we do a lot. And sometimes that person's even moving into another house and they're negotiating something. So
Yeah.
you're messing up a lot of people if you don't get this right.
Yeah, you can. And I want to say one other thing. I mean, it doesn't happen often that we have to go this route. Actually, I really can't think of another time except recently. We went on a listing appointment just last week, and we weren't 100% sure of the value because of the uniqueness of the property.
Right.
So we opted to spring for an appraisal. Right.
Right,
So
right.
we're going to
Just
cover
to
the
make
cost
sure and
of
get
the
it right.
appraisal to just double check ourselves, because, we don't want to be in a situation where we get it wrong and we do a disservice to our seller.
Right. That's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this topic was getting the pricing right on selling your home, right? So that was why not to go too high,
Why not to go too low?
and the pros and cons of each.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's no shame in getting an appraisal ahead of time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's always, okay, so let's talk a little bit about the appraisal part. So if we get an appraisal, right? Now the appraisal is going to come from a licensed appraiser that's
Yeah.
going to use the comparables
Yep.
and give value to certain things and take away from things that say this property doesn't have that the neighbor does. Now, it is subjective to some extent, because the new buyer will have to get a loan, may have to get a loan. And if they do, the bank will hire another appraiser.
Right.
So there may be a little bit of difference in what that appraiser says versus what our appraiser says.
Well, that's true because any appraisal is subjective. However, I would probably give the appraiser the appraisal that we did in advance.
Agreed. And that would be a good way of controlling, not controlling, but at least them being able to tell us, hey, listen, your appraiser gave this property this value, and maybe a new comp comes in that time frame also. That's very
Sure.
possible,
Yeah,
right?
there
Which
could
can
be
change
an
it.
adjustment.
Right. So that would be, but then we would know, right, why that happened, and we have evidence to the fact. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's the right way
I
to
mean,
do
you
it.
just as a listing agent, you got to come armed when you meet the appraiser with anything that's going to help bring the value in. I mean, I know you're not supposed to interfere. Most appraisers don't really like you to, but then some appraisers are cool about it, and they'll even call you up directly and say, "Hey, what comps did you use to price this property?"
Right.
Maybe they're not finding it, or they're open to our suggestion, which is always great when they communicate well. So, yeah.
Yeah. So all right. So that's pricing
Yeah.
and
Pricing 101.
right. Yeah. I mean, it's such a tough topic. I think everybody
Yeah.
always wants to know what their property's worth. They look at Zillow. So let's talk about Zillow a little
jeez.
bit.
Oh, don't bring up the Z word,
The
please.
Z word, right? Yeah. I know. Well, Zillow gives you a Zestimate, right? And that's based off of
Freaking
just
estimate.
yeah, but that's like, I mean, like this property the other one that we were talking about, it has an ADU, right?
Well, can I just really quickly say something about the Zestimate?
Of course.
You can go right onto Zillow's website, and it has a disclaimer that shows that their Zestimate can be up to like 22% off
my
or
God.
something.
Yeah, that's
You know, and this is what the majority of the population is going to for their home value.
right. It's a ballpark, I guess, right? And if that's that far off,
Yeah.
though, I mean, it could be very deceiving. Um, if you want to know the difference of pricing, like from, say, Nebraska to New York, right? I mean, yeah, that might be something you could use to at least see the vast difference. But to dial it in, it's not the best tool, especially since what we do is we walk into the homes, we see what the amenities are, the upgrades, and really look to see all the details of everything. I mean, looking at homes, you look at older homes, you know, the upgrades they do, electrical panels, just little things, right? That what it does is it's not always correlated directly to a cost. And what I mean by that is like putting a new kitchen in, right? People think, oh, it's going to cost me 50 grand to put a kitchen in, and they want 50 grand.
That doesn't work that way.
No, because
Yeah.
they might have a kitchen that's worth 25.
Well,
And you
same
gotta
thing
take
with
that
a
out.
pool. You might spend 80 grand on a pool, but you're probably only going to get about 10 or 15,000 if you were to go to sell with a pool versus no pool.
I'd say a little more on an $80,000. I'd hope so. Depending on the
I would
$80,000
li-
pool
I
you
would-
put in there, you're gonna put a puddle back there.
I mean, I would like to say you're right, but I don't think so.
I'd say a little more, but still, you got a point. It's
Yeah.
not exactly. You're not gonna get dollar for dollar.
No, definitely
And
not.
I'd say every one of those different upgrades gets different percentage of return, and then it also depends on how crappy your old stuff was.
Yeah.
If you had a really crappy kitchen and now you put a brand new shiny one in, you're going to see a huge increase. But if you had a kitchen and all you did was change the color, you might not actually see something. I mean, you know what I
I
mean?
mean, you're definitely not going to get a dollar for dollar value.
Right. If the old
like
kitchen
on your
was just-
investment. I don't know. I don't really encourage sellers to do a lot of work to the house prior to listing because
Unless it's jacked up, right?
I don't think they're going to get their money out.
Yeah, I'd say if the property's going to do a huge 180 on aesthetics and like look,
Well, let's go.
then yeah.
We have something like that now that we could probably mention, right?
Which one?
The ranch property. So
Okay, yeah, that's huge.
yeah, the ranch property, stunning property out in the country.
Beautiful, amazingly. It's just a very serene, tranquil environment. Like,
Yeah,
but
it's dated. Yeah, it's dated. So I mean, we're pulling it off the market for a little bit. Seller's gonna have some work done to it to up the hopefully up the return
Right.
on her investment, and I can't wait to see it when it's done. It's
I
going to
know,
be
it's gonna-
gorgeous.
I've seen the renderings and everything, and they're amazing. Like, but it does the views, all the nature and everything. It doesn't do it any justice to not have it updated. And I'm looking forward to kind of putting that shine on it because it's going to be cool.
I agree.
It's going to be cool.
I agree.
And I can't wait to to get that.
It's going to be a very lucky person that gets this property when it's all done, because it's such a special place.
Right, but I mean, there's nothing out there like that. That's why, right? I mean, who's going to get that amount of acreage, orchards and like hills and rolling hills and just
And the nature, all the nature
Right.
around that property is amazing.
I saw a
So,
turkey there the other day. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's super cool, right? I mean, you just don't see that kind of everyday nature
yeah.
living where we live. Although we still do see some nature, but now all right, well, that was your friendly Zillow that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
So anything else that you want to touch on with regards to how to price property or what's important with pricing property?
I think we pretty much covered it.
All right. Well, thanks for watching.
Yep.
We're going to be signing off here, and hopefully you keep watching our podcast, and we'll keep them coming.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the Opposites Unite podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to leave a comment for a chance to get a shout out in our next video. See you next time.